What's up, St. John? It's Father Jonathan, and it is Holy Thursday, which is the first day of our entry into the Triduum, the shortest liturgical season of the year. These 3 days that lead up to Easter, when we walk in the footsteps of Jesus. We have the Holy Thursday Mass this evening that commemorates the Last Supper. We have the Good Friday liturgy tomorrow, and many places also often have Stations of the Cross. We have the great vigil, right? The vigil of Easter, the Easter vigil on Saturday evening, and then of course finally Easter Sunday. And some of these services are so beautiful and really have incredible things to give to us. And of course this year is different and sad because we can't be together for the celebration of the Triduum, right? We can't gather in our churches in the way that we would want to. Now, fortunately, many churches are live streaming their services, including most of the parishes where those of you who go to St. John the 23rd are members. I've created a little chart that shows when each of the services are being live streamed, if you want to kind of figure that out with your family. So I'll put a link to that down below the video if you'd like to take a look. And I hope that you do. I hope that you have the opportunity to engage with that. Nevertheless, it's not the same, right? It's not the same as it would be if we could all come together for it. Yesterday, I watched one of the Pivotal Players series videos that Bishop Barron does. These are videos, long videos, like an hour each, in which he looks at one of the people he calls a pivotal player, one of these figures in the history of the Catholic Church who has made a really large impact on Catholicism and on the practice of Catholicism in our world. And the one I looked at yesterday was about Flannery OConnor, who was one of my favorite writers. She was an American writer. She died in 1964, a Southern writer, and she writes these short stories and novels that are kind of grim, actually. They can be very dark, they can be very haunting, but she was a Catholic. She took that very seriously, and what she said about her writing was that it was about grace. It was about God's offering of grace, that God loves us so much that He's continuously trying to offer His grace to us, trying to lift us up, and yet we are continuously saying no to it over and over and over again. One of her most famous stories is called "A Good Man is Hard to Find," and like most of her stories, it's pretty dark. It's about this family, and particularly about this woman who's the grandmother in this family, who's she's kind of self-interested and self-important, and a lot of the traits that you see in a number of leading characters in O'Connor's writing. But they go on this trip together, and they have this encounter with a man who she recognizes from his picture in the newspapers as the misfit, this killer who has been on the loose. And I don't want to tell you everything that happens in the story. It's an incredible story. I will say it is pretty dark, so read it at your own risk. There's a wonderful recording out there somewhere of O'Connor actually reading the story, so if you wanted to listen to that, if I can find a link to that, I'll put that down below as well. But what I really want to focus in on is this one-liner. The misfit and the grandmother have this strange and fairly theologically savvy conversation, given who they both are. And afterwards, the misfit is talking to one of his associates about the grandmother, and he says about her, she would have been a good woman if it had been somebody there to shoot her every minute of her life. This is one of the most famous quotes from that story. She would have been a good woman if there had been someone there to shoot her every minute of her life. Weird, right? Strange thing to say, dark thing to say. But what's the point that O'Connor is trying to make there? The point that she's making is that we are far more likely to accept the gift of grace that God is continuously trying to give us when we realize our own mortality, when we realize our own weakness and our own need, our own dependence on Him, right? God is constantly reaching out to us, constantly trying to give us His grace, constantly trying to lift us up, and much of the time we say no to it. And part of the reason for that is because a lot of the time we feel like we're fine, you know? Everything's okay, I've got enough, you know, I'm doing all right in the world, and, you know, God, okay, yeah, that's fine, we'll leave that for later, if at all. Changes dramatically when we suddenly are aware of the fact that we actually do need Him, that we actually don't have as much to protect us as we think we do, that we aren't as sophisticated or as invulnerable as we thought we were. All of this, I think, is very relevant to the celebration of Holy Week. It was relevant certainly to O'Connor's own life. You know, Bishop Barron points out that this experience was her experience, right? She died pretty young. She was 39 years old when she died. She died of lupus, which she had suffered from on and off for her entire adult life. And so for her, it really was like every day was like she had a gun to her head, right? Like that's the way it felt. And so the offer of grace must have felt that much more poignant for that reason. When we think about Jesus and the walk that He is about to take up the cross, you know, here's a man who his entire life, he knew his mission. His mission was to die. He knew that the cross was coming, and He bore the weight of it long before He ever started the walk up to Calvary, right? And here we are, in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of COVID-19 and everything that's happening around us, and it can feel that way to us too. It can feel like we're entering into this Triduum this year with a gun to our heads. Now, I hasten to add, it's okay, right? We're going to be okay. You know, we're staying safe, we're staying home, we're taking lots of precautions so that we don't get sick. Even if you do get sick, the majority of people do recover, do get well from this thing. So I don't want to make everybody like really panicky and really nervous, because we don't need to be. But there is a kind of heightened anxiety, I think, this year, and a heightened awareness that maybe everything that we've put all of our trust in isn't as stable as we thought, you know? Maybe we don't have everything figured out. Maybe we're not impenetrable. And maybe that means that it's time for us to accept that offer of grace. Even though we can't actually gather together for the Sacred Triduum this year, maybe, just maybe, this is the year that as God throws a line to us, we're actually able to catch it, to receive it, to hold on to it, and to allow Him to do what in His incredible love for us He has wanted to do all along, which is to pull us up, to bless us, and to heal us. I hope that's your experience this year. I hope you have a very blessed Triduum, a very happy Easter. I look forward to seeing you in the season of Easter next week. Until then, God bless each and every one of you. Grace, peace, and love.